In the 1970s, New York City was a place where a subway ride meant stepping into a rolling canvas scarred by rebellion. Times Square never slept and never blinked. A single slice of pizza could be a lifeline. These vanished rituals are explored in a series called 12 Things from 1970s New York You Will Never See Again, and they are not just lost nostalgia. They reveal how crisis forged a culture unlike any before or since. The city's struggle shaped everything, but most people have no idea what was really at stake or how quickly it all disappeared. So what happened to these icons, and what was lost when the city changed for good? Graffiti rattled in the hands of teenagers who saw the city's crumbling subway not as a failure, but as a blank slate. By 1971, Taki 183, a Greek-American delivery boy from Washington Heights, had written his name and street number on so many train cars that the New York Times tracked him down for a front-page story. That article lit the fuse. Soon, hundreds of young writers chased visibility across the 5 boroughs, each tag a claim to existence in a city that often looked the other way. By 1973, simple signatures exploded into wild, full-car masterpieces. Super Cool 223 painted the first one that year, followed closely by artists like Blade and Lee Quinones, who would cover entire trains with color, characters, and 3-dimensional letters. These rolling galleries crossed neighborhoods and class lines, carrying the names of kids from the Bronx, Harlem, and Brooklyn into the heart of Manhattan. The Metropolitan Transportation Authority tried everything: white paint, double fences, barbed wire, even German shepherds. But the writers kept coming, sometimes working in crews, sometimes alone, always risking arrest. For many, the point was not just rebellion, but recognition. To see your tag fly past a crowded platform was proof you mattered, even if only for a moment. Commuters stepped into these metal capsules with a mix of dread and wonder. The graffiti was everywhere, on doors, windows, ceilings, even over the maps. Some writers saw art, others saw a warning that the city had lost control. By 1975, every train line was a moving mural, and the city's official war on graffiti was in full swing. The more authorities scrubbed, the more the writers doubled down. Above ground, Times Square pulsed with a different kind of energy. In 1975, Richard Bassiano opened Show World Center, a 4-story palace of neon peep shows and X-rated films that drew thousands every week. The city's adult entertainment industry operated in the open, with glowing marquees and crowded lobbies. The Grindhouse theaters on 42nd Street ran triple features around the clock, their sticky seats filled with tourists, hustlers, and locals looking for escape. The block never slept. Patrons wandered from peep shows to midnight movies, blinking in the hard neon light. Hustlers worked the corners, deals were made in doorways, and the street-level economy thrived on anonymity and risk. Police raids came and went, but the businesses endured, shaping a world where the rules felt negotiable and the city's creative pulse beat loudest after dark. Graffiti and Grindhouse shared more than geography. They were both creative responses to neglect, ways to claim space in a city that offered little security. Whether on a subway car or under a neon sign, 1970s New York belonged to those willing to make themselves seen, no matter the cost. Steel skeletons rose above Lower Manhattan as the World Trade Center towers began to change the city's horizon. By 1973, the North Tower stood complete, with the South Tower following closely behind. Each month brought new floors and fresh uncertainty. Some New Yorkers marveled at the ambition, while others questioned the cost as the city's debts deepened. Port Authority engineers worked through wind, rain, and labor strikes, piecing together the towers floor by floor. From street level, the unfinished giants cast long shadows over neighborhoods still marked by neglect. For many, the sight of the towers in progress was a rare promise that New York could still build, even as so much else seemed to be falling apart. Down at street level, Another kind of drama played out in the drifting clouds of steam that curled from manhole covers and sidewalk vents. The city's steam system, run by Con Edison since the early 1900s, sent hot vapor through miles of underground pipes. In the summer of 1973, a steam pipe burst on East 52nd Street, sending a geyser of white fog and debris into the air. The explosion rattled windows and nerves, but for most people, the constant plumes were just part of the city's daily rhythm. Pedestrians vanished into the haze and reappeared as silhouettes, lending every block a sense of mystery. The steam made the city feel cinematic, unpredictable, a place where anything could happen just out of sight. In the middle of all this, neighborhood pizza shops offered a kind of stability that the rest of the city could not. A slice cost between 25 cents and 50 cents, cheap enough for anyone to grab on the way home from work or school. Ovens were patched together, menus were handwritten, and the owners, often immigrants, knew their regulars by name. One family pizzeria owner remembered selling hundreds of slices a day, each one a small comfort against the city's rising prices and rolling blackouts. The pizza counter became a meeting point, a place where people shared news, worries, and a sense of belonging. While grand projects like the World Trade Center reached for the sky, it was these small rituals, steam on the streets and a hot slice in hand, that grounded New Yorkers in the reality of their city. Checker cabs once set the pace of New York's streets, their boxy yellow bodies weaving through traffic with a kind of battered grace. Drivers slid behind wide bench seats, picking up fares from every corner of the city. One former driver remembers the feeling of those long nights. No GPS, no credit cards, just the meter ticking, and a map folded in the glove compartment. The Checkers' doors slammed shut with a heavy finality, and for a few blocks the cab became its own world. A couple arguing, a jazz musician hauling a battered case, a secretary counting coins for the fare. By 1982, the last Checker rolled off duty, replaced by sleeker, less memorable cars. Something essential faded with them, the unpredictable, communal energy of a ride where anything could happen. Out on the sidewalks, the city's struggle with trash became impossible to ignore. In 1975, a sanitation slowdown left mountains of garbage piled high for weeks. Bags burst open, rats darted across curbs, and the smell seeped into every doorway. A sanitation worker from that era recalls the frustration of falling behind, of watching bags stack up faster than they could be hauled away. Newspapers ran photos of tourists stepping over knee-high piles, while locals grumbled but adapted. The trash was not just a nuisance, it was a daily reminder that the city's basic systems were breaking down. In the Bronx, the contrast was even sharper. Yankee Stadium glowed under the lights, packed with fans cheering for Reggie Jackson and Thurman Munson. But beyond the outfield, entire blocks burned. During the 1977 World Series, NBC cameras caught flames rising from abandoned buildings, a broadcast that branded the Bronx in the eyes of the nation. One lifelong fan remembers the heartbreak of watching his neighborhood become shorthand for disaster, even as the crowd inside the stadium roared with hope. These were the images that stuck: a cab's bench seat, a mountain of garbage, a stadium surrounded by fire. Each scene told the story of a city fighting to keep moving, even as the world watched it unravel. A bell rings as Hugo Martinez greets a neighbor in his bodega, jotting down a loaf of bread and a quart of milk on a slip of paper, payment promised by Friday. In the 1970s, trust replaced credit cards. Owners tracked debts in battered notebooks, letting balances linger when times were tight. Markups hovered near 30%, but regulars saw prices shift with circumstance. The bodega cat curled by the bread shelf, and everyone from school kids to night shift workers knew Hugo by name. A few blocks away, artists claimed Soho's empty lofts, living illegally in vast, drafty spaces for $200 a month, cash paid quietly. The city looked the other way. At the Razor Gallery, subway writers and painters filled the walls with color, turning live work spaces into creative laboratories. Canvases, spray cans, and late-night arguments shaped a new kind of art scene, born from necessity and risk. That was raw creativity. On the Bowery, Sal paid 75 cents for a bed in a flophouse, one of thousands crammed into the district's last resort hotels. The air was thick with smoke and stories. Some men stayed a night, others for years, forging a fragile community from hardship. Shelter was cheap, but anonymity cost dearly. The Bowery held a kind of resilience. Across the city, Harlem's jazz clubs pulsed with music. The Lower East Side buzzed with street vendors and a mix of languages, and Brooklyn's waterfront echoed with families gathering after long shifts. Each block formed a mosaic of Puerto Rican, Jewish, Italian, Chinese, and Black life, held together by daily ritual and shared struggle. These microeconomies and informal networks sustained New York's identity before redevelopment swept so much away. What remains is the memory of a city built on ingenuity, community, and the will to endure. New York's past isn't just nostalgia, it is a warning. As neighborhoods grow safer and wealthier, the city risks losing the grit that once fueled its creativity and community. What vanishes shapes who belongs. The city you inherit depends on what you choose to remember and what you fight to keep.